Hello and welcome. I'm Ashley of The Ugly Sheep, and today we're going to learn to use our supported spindles. So to do supported spindle spinning, you will need your spindle, and they come in a lot of different sizes and shapes. What you're looking for a supported spindle is something that has some kind of point at the bottom that is able to be spun in a dish or on your leg or on a table. Now, if you're doing it on your leg or a table, I would recommend one that does not have a very sharp point like this one, and maybe go for a smoother point like this one. You will also need some scrap yarn, although this is optional, and I'll show you how to get started without it as well, and some fiber. You want to have shorter fiber for supported spinning versus long fiber. A rowlag is preferable, but comb top can work just as well. And if you're just getting started, getting mill ends that come like this with a bunch of different random colors and fibers is perfect. It's an inexpensive way to get a lot of fiber to try out. So first we're going to use our string to get started. To start with the spare yarn you have, about 8 to 12 inches, you're going to make a loop with a short end, and then you're going to pull the short tail and the long tail through that loop and pull tight. And then you're going to make another loop with the long end and pull both the long tail and the short tail through and pull tight to secure the leader onto the spindle. Once you do that, you're going to wind the yarn in a spiral up the spindle, the same direction you're going to spin your yarn, and make a little loop at the top to put over the tip of the spindle and pull tight. The area not attached to the spindle is where you're going to spin your fiber. If you're using combed top, what I suggest you do is take your fiber and split it down the center lengthwise, and then split it down the center again, so that you're only using about 1/4 of the width of the fiber at one time to make it easier to manage. Now you're going to just pull a little bit of fiber out from the fiber supply and add a little bit of twist to your yarn. Once you have that twist in place, you're going to hold it with the twist and put the little bit of length of fiber that you pulled out along the yarn and add more twist so that you can attach that fiber to the yarn. I will show you a few times so that you can see it done, but you're just moving the twist from where you were holding the yarn and then letting it go up into the fiber as you're pulling some of the fiber away to make the draft. And so you're going to do that whether you're doing it to attach the fiber to the leader, and you're also going to do it to just spin. So I'll show a few times so that you can see how the motion is done. Once you have the fiber attached to your leader, we're going to undo the half hitch, which is the loop that you put on top, and we're going to wind on the leader yarn so that we start to wrap our progress around the spindle. And you'll do this periodically to keep from building up too much yarn that you cannot reach comfortably. Once you have your new fiber wound on, we're going to do the half hitch again, making a small loop at the top and putting it over the top of the spindle. And then we're going to continue just adding spin before we start drafting out the fiber. And we're going to kind of alternate between spinning and drafting so that you're not doing it all at once. With the pink fiber, I'm going to show you how to make a leader. You're going to pull out a little bit of the fiber, not detaching it from the fiber supply, but just pulling out some, and you're going to start spinning it. I'll say clockwise since that's how I'm spinning it, but it's whatever direction you are spinning your yarn, you want to spin those initial fibers. And you want to make a little bit of a string long enough to wrap a couple times around the top and then make a half hitch with at least a little bit, like an inch or two, to be able to start your spinning. And really at this point, the steps are still the same. You're going to add some twist, and then you're going to draft a little bit, add some more twist, and draft a little bit. One important thing to make sure is that you do not draft so long that you have to really reach far for your shoulder. That's not really good for your shoulder, and it'll potentially cause a stress injury long term, but short term, it just shortens how much you can spin at a time. Once you have a decent amount drafted, you can then butterfly the fiber, and that is just taking it between your thumb and one of your fingers and making a figure 8 around it to make sure that you keep your fiber taut instead of loose and curly-cuey. Now the difference between a leader and knot is now that you have enough spun, you need to twist that yarn around your spindle a few times as opposed to making the knot for the leader. Everything else is pretty much the same. The way you spin is the same, and now from this point on, putting the yarn on the spindle is exactly the same, whether you started with a leader or you made a leader of the fiber you're spinning. Whether you've made a leader or you have a leader pre-made, once you have the fiber that you're spinning starting to get wound onto your spindle, you can make a little cob at the top by spinning it the length that you spun around the top a few times before you take it off to wrap around the bottom of the spindle. This helps you just get in a rhythm with spinning. It's not necessary. I do find it helpful. If your yarn breaks or your fiber comes apart from your spinning, or you need to add new fiber, what you want to do is make sure that both ends are fluffy, and then you're going to start drafting some fibers that you lay aside the current spinning that you have done and spin and draft just like you were adding them onto a leader. and this helps put them together seamlessly, and you can continue spinning. Once you have your yarn spun, it's time to take it off the spindle. I'm going to show you how to prepare it for cleaning. If you wanted to apply this yarn along with another yarn you've made, you will simply do this, except instead of wrapping it around your arm, you're just going to make a ball to apply the yarns together. To take the yarn off, you'll need 4 small things of yarn, and then you're going to take your yarn and wrap it around your elbow and the crook between your thumb and your pointer finger. You're going to need to hold it between your thumb and pointer finger for the first couple of rounds to make sure it stays. It's really important to make sure that you're just keeping it taut and not tight, because you don't want the yarn to dig into your arm and you want it to come off easily. Another thing too, if you're doing this on a niddy noddy, is you don't want to stretch the yarn. Although as we get ready to clean it, that should help resolve some of that issue, but you don't want to overstretch your yarn. Once we have this yarn off of the spindle and tied off, we're going to wash this. Always use cool or cold water to wash your wool yarn so that it does not felt. I use a wool wash called Soak, but you can use anything that is meant for delicate hand washing. For the soak, I'm going to put a little bit of the soap into the cold or cool water, swish it around a little bit just to incorporate it, and then leave the yarn to soak in the water for about 10 to 15 minutes. And then I will squeeze all the excess water out and hang it to dry. Make sure that you read the instructions on whatever soap you're using, because some you can leave in, like the soak, and some, like a Woolite, you would need to rinse out. Now that the yarn is off the spindle, we're going to tie off our hank of yarn in 4 places. And I always start where my thumb is, just because it's easier to get the string in there without letting go. And I wrap it around, instead of just once to make the start of a bow, do twice. And then I always tie in bows. We don't want to have to use scissors to cut the fiber free, because if we cut the yarn, we may have cut into our yardage instead of just through the ties. And I'm going to put 4 ties on that are going to be roughly equidistant apart, so that it's cutting your yarn into 4 parts. You do not want these ties to be very tight. You want them to be secure so they don't fall off, but you don't want them really tight because you want the soapy water to get through all of the yarn. And if you tie tightly, the yarn underneath the ties will not get washed and set. Now that we have this tied off, I'm going to go ahead and wash my yarn and hang it to dry. For this small, it really only takes a couple of hours, but since it's getting late, I will probably wait until the next morning to show you the final result and how to make a hank out of your yarn. Now that our yarn is dry, I'll show you how to skein it up. You can use really whichever method is comfortable for you, whether it's your thumb or your fingers, and you're just going to twist them the opposite direction. So one is going away from you, one is going towards you, to put a lot of twist in your yarn. Once you have that, you're going to put your thumb or finger in the middle and transfer your loops to one finger. Then you're just going to take the back loop and bring it forward to bring your finger out of it, and there you have a nice little skein. I think the color of this yarn reminds me of Pepto-Bismol. My daughter thinks it's pink cotton candy. Let us know which one you think is right, or if you have something else entirely that it looks like. And while you're down there, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.